So every once in a while, we have these magical times when things come together in a way that you never imagined, and this is one of them. We have Dr. Joe Marshall down here in front, and Joe has been asking me for a few years if I knew where Cliff Wood was. So we have been looking for Cliff for many, many years, and we found him. And we found him right here at Grayson. Now, you may not know how significant that is, but he was the first regional coordinator for the state of Texas. And that, to me, is the magical moment. When people are brought together, they have discussions, and then we have a legacy with us today. So let me tell you just a little bit about him. You know that the Texas region is rich in tradition, and when it comes together like this, it is truly magical. So let me tell you a little bit about Cliff. Mr. Cliff Wood came to Grayson College in 1965 when the college first opened. He served as a chemistry professor, became the director of science and engineering in 1980, and then became Dean of Arts and Sciences in 1989. He retained that position until his retirement in 1994. In 1968, we'll go back a bit, Dr. Cruz Stark, the college president, asked Mr. Wood to sponsor the two-year-old chapter of Phi Theta Kappa, because the first sponsor didn't want the responsibility of traveling with the students. Boy, that'd be a shame if you had advisors telling you that, right? And a convention was coming up in the spring. So Mr. Wood and the chapter attended that convention, and every single solitary one that followed. In 1972, Dr. Margaret Moselle, executive director of Phi Theta Kappa, asked him to serve as the Texas regional coordinator. He held this position until his retirement in 1994. Mr. Wood and the chapter earned just about every possible award Phi Theta Kappa had to offer. The most prestigious award he received was the Moselle Scholar Award, which allowed him to spend a summer abroad studying in England. So, Texas, let's welcome Mr. Cliff Wood to the stage.
You'll be pleased to know that the title of this, the last part of it, is resolutions. I'm resolved not to take more than 12 minutes of your time. At times, when I'm just sitting in my study or out on the boat, drifting on Lake Texoma out here, or waking up in a warm bed, I think of the 20-something years I served as sponsor and regional coordinator of Phi Theta Kappa. And I thank God for the opportunity to have worked with you for such a long and significant period of my life. You don't know who I am, but I know who you are. Excuse me. And I know what you are. I've traveled thousands of miles with you by car, chartered bus, airplane, school bus. I've heard you described by custodians, maids, hotel managers. But most frequently, I think of my own experience right here in Grayson. The National Convention was in Panama City, Florida. We had 32 people wanting to attend, where the college president, Cruz Stark, said you can take a school bus, but you may need to get help driving it. Well, the father of one of the members was a long-haul truck driver. And he told his daughter, Suzanne, that he would go and help drive. Well, after 4 days of basking on the Florida beach in Panama City, we headed home, 19 hours on the road. But when we got here, parents and friends were waiting outside of this auditorium to pick us up. As Eugene, the driver's name, came onto campus, he pulled up with that water tower right up outside here, stopped the bus, got up, big guy, in front of the bus, and he said, I've never made a speech. I don't intend to now. But I just want to tell you that you're the best damn bunch of kids that I've ever been around in my life. So as he drove on down in front of the auditorium here, and as everyone got off, I don't think there was a single one that didn't hug his neck. This is a refrain that I have heard over and over working with Phi Theta Kappa. We went to a national convention at the Kaler Hotel in Rochester, Minnesota. And I chartered 2 buses out of Dallas, 1 out of Houston, Trailways. And we had a bus breakdown on the way there, and they had to send a replacement. But everything was fine. We made it until ready to start back. On the way back, I discovered that we were leaving at 10 at night, and the checkout time for our rooms was 12 noon. So I went to the hotel management and told them our dilemma, and we had about 120 people involved. They had a conference, came out in a few minutes and said, since these have been such a great bunch of kids, you can keep your rooms until midnight tomorrow night without any extra charge. Well, on the way back, buses stopped in Kansas City and for mid-morning break, I guess. And these bunch gathered around me with a tablet proclaiming me as sponsor of the universe. Gave me a Continental bus, a replica, and I still have that. Texas has been fortunate to have had the support of so many of its college presidents. The one who rises above all others, for me at least, is Dr. Tom Spencer, president of Santa College in Houston. Dr. Spencer was president of the Junior College Presidents Association for 30 years. Throughout his tenure, he was always a good friend for Phi Theta Kappa. He was personally responsible for chartering more than 6 new chapters. He said, what I do is break ground, call Margaret, tell her to give us a chapter of Phi Theta Kappa. Margaret was executive director of the organization. In the history of Phi Theta Kappa, other presidents of colleges, and I could name many, many more, but time doesn't permit. Dr. James Atkinson of Glenn College has been a tremendous supporter. Dr. Kenneth Walker of Navarro College allocated $25,000 to the chapter to help its members attend the Honors Institute. Here at Grayson, we invited our president, then Dr. Truman Wester, to go with us to the National Convention in Philadelphia. He did, and when we got back, he put Phi Theta Kappa in the college budget. So we didn't have to worry anymore about fundraising and begging for money. And that was a big plus. We've had so much strong support from our college presidents that we can give them credit for the strong organization we enjoy in Texas. And I would encourage each of you to go to your president when you get back and thank them for their guidance and their support. After all, they're rather isolated from the good they're doing, and it's heartwarming to them when someone like you acknowledges their role in your lives. The lifeblood of Phi Theta Kappa has and always will be its sponsors. We in Texas have had our share of giants. In 1970, we at Grayson hosted the state convention on this campus. Harold Reel, sponsor of San Jacinto College in Houston, called me to tell me they were bringing 60 members and that they were running for state president. He called a few days later to tell me, by the way, we're going to parachute in. Well, I thought that was exciting. So I told our president, Dr. Cruz Stark, and he said, I'll talk to Dr. Spencer. Well, about an hour later, he got back to me and he said, well, they won't be parachuting in. They did run and won the office of state presidents. Bill Black was elected. And other winners at this convention were Robert Giles and Janice Sneed with Lynn College, Gail Poole, the chapter at Odessa College, always a strong one, Jared Johnson and the chapter at Corsicana. But when it comes to leadership, I know of no better teacher than a good example. In this state, you can go to members of Phi Theta Kappa, state officers, and your national leaders, and find many, many examples worthy of your trust. After I expressed the desire to Ms. Linder to maybe say something at this convention, I started thumbing through the crates of materials from my time with Phi Theta Kappa. I realized immediately that it would be impossible for me to adequately portray the love and support given by Texas members and administration without leaving out a lot of important people. And I apologize. There are many, many in the state that have been so supportive of Phi Theta Kappa in this state. No mention of this organization can be complete without acknowledging its founder, Margaret James Moselle. The history of this organization is largely the history of one woman. I first met Margaret at the National Convention in Houston in 1968. And for us, it was pretty much, I think, love at first sight. I realized right away that she had the charm of a Southern lady and the persuasiveness of a Confederate general. Soon after she appointed me a regional advisor, as it was when she had something to say or something to ask, she motioned for me, come sit down, honey, let's talk. Well, we talked, and I knew then that the spider had another fly. Not long after she appointed me state advisor, she called and said, honey, I wonder if you could go out to Seattle see what's going on out there. Well, so a group has formed an organization called Phi Theta Kappa Incorporated. And we can't have two Phi Theta Kappas. Well, I went and met with a young man named Jim Mock. I didn't know if it was going to be a friendly meeting or a confrontation. But as it turned out, Jim was just a Phi Theta Kappa, a great kid. And all they wanted really to do was extend their participation in Phi Theta Kappa. So I invited him to the upcoming national convention at Margaret's expense. Margaret, after we got there, honey, come sit down and let's talk. The result was that Phi Theta Kappa Incorporated was disbanded and Phi Theta Kappa National Alumni Association was formed in its place, with Rod Risley as its head. If you happen to be from Mississippi and received recognition, such as Fred Hayes, Apollo 13 astronaut, Eudora Welty, author, Debbie Bryant, Miss America, or Faulkner, well, you were Margaret's bait. Because, once you were going to be a part of Phi Theta Kappa, one way or the other, preferably on the program as a speaker or as a worker of some sort for Phi Theta Kappa. You were going to be a part of the program. But this was extended to other parts of the country as well, and other people. Her sister, Sarah Evans, said of her, when it comes to Phi Theta Kappa, Margaret knows no shame. And she didn't. But for Phi Theta Kappa, there was nothing she wouldn't do, nowhere she wouldn't go, no gathering too large or too small was too much for Margaret. Margaret's last days on earth, she lived with her daughter in Canton, Mississippi. I drove to see her, stopping in Jackson to spend the night with Rod Risley and his wife. Then the next morning, I drove up to Canton, where she lived. When I arrived, it was obvious that she didn't have long on this earth. She was gray, drawn, barely able to move her body. But when I entered the room, it was almost like the old Margaret. The wave of her finger, come sit down by me, honey. Well, honey went and sat down by her bed. We talked about Phi Theta Kappa for a while. She was tired, so I told her it was time for me to go. And in the grand style of Margaret Moselle, she said, "Come give me a hug, honey." I did. She said, "I love you." I said, "I love you, Margaret." I never saw her again after that. But today, when I think of Phi Theta Kappa, I think of Margaret and all the work that she put into making this organization one that you would love and be proud of. I think I'll stop right there.
We would like to thank you for joining stories about the Texas region with us. I need you to please accept this gift as a token of our appreciation.
Oh, thank you. Just one final word. I would, on behalf of all of us, like to thank you, Joe Marshall, for coming to, again, to Texas. We've loved you for a long time.